Welcome to this bonus episode of Timm Talk, the podcast mostly about the DC animated universe, co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
Now I'm Cameron Dexter.
And yes, we did say that we'd be back this week with the finale of Static Shock, but we failed to account for how much frickin' news came out of DC Fandome. So much so that we realized there was no way to actually have just a news section. We needed to have a whole dedicated episode to this news behemoth. Now, lots to talk about, but I guess we can start off with talking about how the event itself went. So I was unable to watch a little bit of it live, but you played around with it a little bit, right?
Yeah, I jumped into a couple panels here and there. I think the idea of this turned out very well. I was surprised. I think we both were incredibly surprised with how much content they put out and how much new information they put out. And it really showed why Comic-Con didn't work this year because of how much this was going to do.
Yeah, I mean, they just held on to, I don't know, you could pick probably 2 or 3 things that would have been like huge. I mean, the Batman trailer was always going to be the biggest thing to come out of any sort of convention this year. So it makes sense to hold on to that. But that in combination with the Snyder Cut, with a bunch of game announcements, like they just kept everything. And I've read a couple articles that said like this sets the bar for virtual conventions going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and even just like the thing that we've been talking about forever, the fracturing of conventions. The thing that E3 is slowly been kind of coming up to. This is the big move. Where like we now know that not even just Warner Brothers in general, but DC alone can rival a D23.
It's amazing now that everything is just going to get more siloed, basically, right? So like not only are all of the, is all the content going up on dedicated platforms, but now a lot of the announcements are going to be held on to for specific things. Like you can imagine that Disney's going to continue to like hold all of their key stuff for D23 and, separate themselves further from Comic-Con. DC is going to do the same thing with this fandom. Like this, I think, was pretty much across the board considered a success. So you can imagine they'll try and pivot this to an actual like live event at some point. I think it would do pretty decently well.
Yeah, because Disney doesn't just have D23; they also have Star Wars Celebration, where they do just as many announcements. And I'm imagining we come to this like these biannual events are kind of going to be these new things. Where like I don't know if DC can do this every year, but like if you have a DC panel every other year, kind of flip flop it with D23, and then a Warner Brothers panel, just kind of to fill the void of that gap year. So you can kind of have these smaller virtual things one year and then these big DC events the next year. I think it'd be like a really interesting way for them to move forward in the convention space.
And I'm not entirely opposed to it, actually. Because we've been talking for years about how Comic-Con just, at least for me, is like less fun kind of every time I go because it's gotten so big and it's so hard to go. And that I've always enjoyed going more to like LA Comic-Con or to WonderCon at this point. And so the idea that, maybe as more of the major players start pulling out of, San Diego Comic-Con, that might become a slightly more accessible event down the line.
Yeah.
And that, maybe it now becomes about like just more smaller events than like one huge one every year. And I'd actually be very much in favor of that.
Yeah. And with these huge conventions, you're also very limited with space because for your Comic-Cons, it's been rumored for decades now that Comic-Con is going to move out of San Diego, but there's no real convention center that can hold that many people really anywhere else in the US. Like San Diego and Vegas are kind of the 2 biggest convention halls. I imagine the DC Fandome, if it happens in person, will probably be in Vancouver. Because like that's where most of their TV stuff is already stationed.
Yeah, that could be. Hey, if these things get small enough and niche enough, maybe you and I can find our way onto a panel.
Hell yeah.
That is a dream of mine. We can get, 6 people maybe in a hall listening to 2 of us talk about shit we don't know about. But no, I mean, it would be interesting to see what an actual like live event like this would look like. Great excuse me to dress up as Condiment King again.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, I was kind of astounded by the level of news that came out. So we'll kind of tackle it like section by section. So building up to obviously the biggest thing we're gonna be talking about is the Batman trailer. but lots to get to before that. So let's start off with some comics. So Cameron, you brought up that we had a really exciting announcement in the comic space from DC, and very relevant to what we've been talking about for the last few months.
Yeah, we had some milestone news. So I know DC has been kind of trying to figure out how to get this milestone partnership up and running since 2015. But they finally started working forward with it. We're getting a new Icon series to start this new partnership. But more exciting for me, and I assume for you, was they had Phil LaMarr on the panel, and they were talking about the kind of continuation of a static live action movie coming very soon.
Which I would love to see. We've talked about it a lot, that this is a character that's rife for like a modern reinterpretation. And I would particularly love to see it happen as a live action film just to give it that sort of platform. And I feel like this is the cynical, realistic aspect of the industry. But I think, you know, the nice thing is that with the success of Black Panther, with the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, like it's quote unquote proven, not that it should have ever been needed to, that a Black hero can do well on screen. And I think those kind of successes means Static is more likely. And I think Static could do really, really well, and people would get so excited about it.
Yeah, my doorman, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I have a doorman now.
You're pretentious. Continue.
I am very pretentious. My doorman wears a Miles Morales mask when I come in, and it gets me very excited. And I commented on it when I first met him, and like it was very obvious. Like no one ever, because it's like it's not like an obvious Miles Morales mask. It's like you see it's black and you see the eyes on one side and the graffiti logo on the other. And he got so excited when I brought it up. I'm like, hey, I really like your Miles Morales mask. And he's like, oh my gosh, like yeah, like my girlfriend got it for me. It's from this Etsy shop. And he's like, I'll like next time you come by, like I'll tell you what the Etsy shop is, because like that's super cool that you know who Miles is. And I'm like, oh, you've never had someone to talk to about this. I'm so sorry.
I know. Oh, real nerds meeting in the wild. It's adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they're talking about them doing a live action movie, which would love to see, and then they also reference like more stuff just across Milestone, not necessarily Static specific, in like the animation and podcasting space. And I think we're also getting a Static digital series starting in February.
One of my favorite comments from this panel was Phil LaMarr saying that if someone can get a hold of Scorsese for him and kind of get that Irishman de-aging makeup figured out, then he can definitely play 14.
He's a chameleon, so let him play it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
No, so we got that announcement for the comics. The other thing that we got, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that so Oscar-winning screenwriter John Ridley, who wrote 12 Years a Slave, he's going to be doing a Batman comic, and it sounds like it's going to focus around like Lucius Fox and his family, and possibly a member of that family might end up being the one in the cowl, in the Batcowl, which could be kind of interesting. Because I think, I haven't read a lot of the New 52, but I think in that it's Lucius's son Luke, I want to say, is Batwing. And so there's kind of a history of, you know, one of those characters taking up a mantle. So that sounds really interesting. And John Ridley also wrote a comic series called The Other History of the DC Universe, which kind of explores the history of the DC Universe.
Aptly named.
Yeah, exactly. But focusing on, like, you know, more minority characters. So Black Lightning, Montoya, a few of these other people. And it sounds like a really interesting series. So I've kind of earmarked that as something to check out soon. So, but no, I mean, like, I'm glad that they also had cool comics announcements come out of this. It wasn't just exclusively the bigger properties. So, but moving along from that, speaking of bigger properties, should we talk about some games? We had a couple big announcements this time.
Yes. They fucking blew this out of the park.
Because you had told me that you were actually, out of everything, most excited about Gotham Knights.
Yeah, that I still think that this was the best announcement of the day.
Really?
And it's just that monologue at the beginning that Batman gives. I think it's just because it's something I've never seen. Is like it is actually dead Batman. That monologue was so like emotional to me. It was like such a great way to set. Like if that was the intro to a movie, I would be losing my mind. Or even just like an intro to an animated series. Like if they did like a Batman Inc. animated series, that would be such a cool way to start it.
I see where you're coming from in that. Like it's an interesting premise that we haven't seen explored a lot. Like what happens when Batman's gone and everything is left to the rest of the Bat family. And it looks like they're going to be taking on a number of villains, but ultimately the Court of Owls is going to be like the big bad, it seems like.
Yeah.
And I guess this is set, I think, supposed to be set in the same continuity as the previous Arkham games.
No, because this is a different studio.
Kind of. So this is developed by Warner Brothers Games Montreal. So not Rocksteady, who did the main Arkham games, but they did Arkham Origins. So that is, I think, kind of considered like loose continuity with the other games. That one came out after Arkham City. So I think it's supposed to be set in that same universe because, spoiler alert for the end of Arkham Knight, but Batman fakes his death. Like he's revealed to be Bruce Wayne, and then he I'm pretty sure it ends with him faking his death, if I recall, not actually dying. And then the Red Hood is left to kind of now become a vigilante after having been the Arkham Knight through the entire game. So I think it's set in the same loose continuity. The one thing that kind of trips me up is that in this game, it looks like Jim Gordon's dead, which was not part of the game that I recall.
Yeah, that also hit me.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, I found this very underwhelming, actually.
It really.
So, have you played the Arkham games?
I have. Yeah, I like them all.
Okay, yeah, because I still think Arkham City is the best, and Arkham Knight was fine, but for me, it fell short on two things. One is just the story wasn't as compelling. The fact that it was ultimately just revealed to be Jason Todd was this just feels kind of forced in. The whole Batman's revealed to be Bruce Wayne and fakes his death thing just felt like a really unsatisfying ending, especially because it's a video game. So after the game ends, you can still go explore the city as Batman.
I know. I hate when games they need either a full on finale or leave it more open ended.
Yeah, in my mind, Halo 3 has the best ending to a video game trilogy, but I'm sure there are other ones out there I haven't played. But I just didn't care for the ending of Arkham Knight overall, and also just for me that gameplay was so bloated. The Riddler challenges are so over the top.
Yeah,
the Batmobile was a cool idea, but a lot of the most frustrating parts of the game were having to do the tank battles with the Batmobile. And even watching this, the play already seems like it's gonna be burdened with way too many features. It's kind of cool that you can play as any of the four characters, but in my mind, that doesn't actually expand the gameplay. It kind of just makes it feel like either you're not getting the full value of playing the game because you don't play all the characters, or it becomes redundant because you play the game through each time with a different character. And the other thing too is that the way they were describing in the gameplay footage was that you kind of level up as you go along, which is pretty typical of these sort of RPG games. But he makes reference to there being a preferred build, and it started to kind of feel like maybe they were almost going for a Call of Duty style loadout thing. And look, I don't know enough to know how it's actually going to work. That just was kind of the fear I had. And I know that my peak gaming was well over a decade ago, so I'm a little out of touch with how games are done normally, and I barely play them anymore. But it's just kind of I wasn't super compelled by the story. The world and all the character designs to me were really, really ugly. And then the way they set up what looked like the gameplay was going to be wasn't super appealing to me.
Okay, yeah, those are all fair points. With the leveling system, I assume that means it's probably going to be more of an RPG style game rather than just a straight up action game. Which, that is the trend right now for all action games. They do have an RPG element to them. What I'm imagining is kind of going off your point of it will feel repetitive or something like that. At least the way I'm hoping they're going to handle this is from the look of the trailer, it looks like each of the character has their own kind of specialty, where Batman was pretty good across the board at everything. He hit hard, he had stealth, and he could combo very easily. And so for this, it looks like each of the characters are going to kind of get their own specialty to kind of play with. So Damian looks like he's just going to be the combo character, and it's his whole thing is going to be how easily and how well you can combo and how smoothly you can just kind of take out a horde with these crazy awesome combos. And he has a weird teleportation thing that I don't really understand.
Yeah, I guess I think it's still Timm if it's based off of the Arkham Knight universe, not Damian.
Okay.
Although it's kind of like a Damian-esque costume. But yeah, I guess he can tap into the Justice League teleporter, do short range teleportation.
Oh, okay. But what that looked like, Batgirl and Barbara are gonna have the the stealth component, and they're probably going to like advance stealth mechanics a little bit more for her character. Dick looks like he's probably going to be the main damage dealer. You know, if you kind of, I feel like he'll probably be like the easy mode of the game. Like when you get Dick, it's just like, okay, you hit hard and you're cool and you have this cool mullet costume that you're going to pay $3 extra of DLC for.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Red Hood's like strength would be. I mean, like he has a gun.
He just shoots people. He just shoots people. So I think that was one thing that Arkham Knight did well, was that you were still playing as Batman through almost the entire thing, except for I think maybe little spots here and there where playing as other characters. Mm-hmm. But then it had all those kind of bonus DLC levels where you got to do a dedicated campaign based around these different characters, and their play did feel a little bit different, right? Yeah. It's like, you know, if you were doing the just for the fun of it, like the combat maps, you know, how you would fight as Robin was different than Nightwing, than Batgirl, than Batman. And that was all really cool. I think my concern here is that by having 4 distinct characters with different play styles, and then only one primary campaign you can choose between the 4 of them, it doesn't really feel like it's a game catered to a certain type of gameplay, a certain type of character. It's either you play it as this way or you play it as that way. And then you're going to get to the end of it like, oh, cool, I played the whole thing as Batgirl, but oh, well, I guess I can go play it back as Robin. And then you're just going to play the entire campaign 4 times through. And to me, that doesn't necessarily seem super interesting comparison to having like, you know, a multi-branching story where like this section you're playing as this character, so this section is this character.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, those are all very fair arguments. We're also living in a post-PS4 Spider-Man world, which I would consider the best superhero video game we've ever had.
Having not played it, and I do really want to, but I've heard that, and I think maybe that's part of my concern too, is that you feel like maybe Spider-Man perfected the Arkham method?
I think so, and so I'm hoping they can learn from that a little bit.
Yeah, but I feel like by comparison, this feels like it's just taking kind of the worst parts of Arkham Knight and making a whole game out of it. I think maybe because it's also not coming from Rocksteady, I was just a little bit like, Arkham Origin I think is underappreciated. You know, it's a fine game, but it doesn't really hold up there with the others. And so I'm like, okay, well, will be interesting to see. But we also now know why Rocksteady wasn't doing this one, is they were busy making their own game, which to me actually looks like the more fun of the two, which is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Yes.
We only just got like a trailer, no gameplay footage, and it's not coming out until 2022, so they're a long ways off. But that trailer was super fun.
Can we talk about the like zero to hero story of King Shark and how he's become like the cornerstone of DC right now?
Right? I know, yeah. I mean, he's one of the standout characters of the Harley Quinn animated series. We get him in the Suicide Squad, and now he's in the game here too as one of the 4 playable characters.
Yeah, like damn, he fucking came from nowhere and is now kind of becoming a household name.
I mean, I do kind of love the idea of DC finally recognizing that they have this incredible stable of like really weird, fun characters that they can exploit. Not everything just has to be Batman.
Isn't King Shark a Batman villain?
I think he's primarily a Flash villain.
Okay.
I feel like he showed up in the Flash TV show at least. Yes. You got to expect him to be, I don't know, an Aquaman villain?
Right. I love this world we now live in where shows and properties are trying so hard really to just distance themselves from the CW verse that they're willing to go in these crazy directions. Because, I was worried for a while that the bubble's going to pop soon. We're kind of past this gritty era. But with Doom Patrol, with The Boys, with Umbrella Academy, with Watchmen, we've definitely hit the second wave. I'm going to call it just the fuck it wave. And it's like, we're going to focus on music and choreography and colors and having like a very, we've hit kind of like the 60s, like the 60s comic culture. It's just like how weird can we get it and how like comic book can we get it?
I think what you're describing is the larger comic industries outside of comics itself, but like other mediums, video games, movies, television, finally recognizing that not everything has to be the Dark Knight.
Yes.
I think we had like a decade of everyone, to some degree Marvel, but I'd say actually more excluding Marvel, but like everyone else, especially Warner Brothers, thinking like everything has to be the Dark Knight, and then finally going, oh wait, no, it can be its own fun thing, and let's just let it be fun. And I think for me, this was probably the most fun reveal of all the stuff that came out, because the trailer, it's Harley, Deadshot, King Shark, and Captain Boomerang just like dicking around, and then Amanda Waller in their year like, no, get back on mission. And so they go around and just like kill and beat up a bunch of just generic looking villains. And then if I remember, like, oh wait, what's our alpha target again? And it's revealed to be an evil Superman, like totally there ready to kill them. It looks ridiculously fun and had a great button joke too that I loved.
Yeah, that was wonderful, a wonderful ending. And I think this, they've really kind of like sharpened their fangs with Harley. What's the right phrasing? That's not the right phrase. Sharpen their claws.
Cut their teeth?
Cut their teeth.
I'm not sure what you're going for.
They really sharpen their fangs with this one.
Insert generic idiom here.
Yeah, with the Harley animated series. And I think with the fan love for that show, they're like, okay, yeah, we can just be like stupid and self-referential. And like we've seen the buildup of this with Teen Titans Go to the Movies and Harley. Like fans get it. Like we can have these like very fun inside jokes. You know, Deadshot being like, I never miss. And they're like, yeah, we fucking know you never miss. You never fucking shut up about it. And I think, honestly, like, weirdly enough, that is the cinematic universe they've always wanted. It's just these inside... Because, I mean, that's what Marvel gets to do. Marvel gets to do these inside jokes referencing back to, you know, Spider-Man 2, referencing back to Iron Man 1, where fans get to be like, oh, my God, I remember that scene. I remember that guy. It's that guy. It's that guy who built the thing. And now DC's like, hey, you guys remember this fuck up, right? Yeah, that was funny. You remember this fuck up? Yeah, that was totally a joke.
Look at all these characters that have mustaches.
Yeah, look at this great slate of movies that's coming out next year.
Yeah, so we don't know yet what the gameplay is going to look like. We just got a sense of like what the story and the tone's going to be. But based off that alone, like I'm totally here for it. Like, you know, I'm more inclined to get the Suicide Squad game at launch than I am Gotham Knights. Not that it matters because they'll be like probably well over a year apart. So
my only concern with this one is this version of Killer Shark I'm not a big fan of because he feels way more like Drax.
I mean, you gotta do something a little bit different. They can't all be Ron Funches.
Yes, they can.
I mean, if the world were,
yes, they can.
If the world were full of Ron Funches, everything would just be so much better.
Yes,
but we don't live in that world, Cameron.
Okay, fine. Then hand it off to like Taika Waititi. It's the same thing. It's the same character with a different accent.
Plus, I would watch Taika Waititi play any character for 10 minutes. Like, I'd watch him do a sketch playing any established pop culture character from any universe. Marvel, I want him, DC, Star Wars.
I was going to say, I want him, we'll get to it in a second, but I want him to play every character they announced for a Suicide Squad movie.
Yes.
Taika Waititi as Polka Dot Man. Taika Waititi as Rick Flag. Taika Waititi as Harley Quinn. Taika Waititi as King Shark.
I would absolutely watch the 5-minute joke video of the one-man version of the Suicide Squad. All right, well, should we talk a little bit TV now?
Yeah, let's get into the TV news.
Okay, we did get quite a bit of stuff coming out of The Batman, which we'll get to at the end here, but there's also a little bit of discussion about the GCPD spin-off coming out of that movie that we've talked about before. So it looks like that the movie is going to be set in year 2 of Batman's campaign, and that this show will be set in year 1, and it'll focus mostly on corruption within the GCPD, and I guess there'll be references to like the emergence of Batman and the mythology around him and the background of the show. From that angle, it sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost exactly what we pitched when we first heard about the GCPD show. Of like, I want just Gordon just moved to Gotham dealing with the corruption. And I just want like the end of season 1 to be that fight scene between him and the other officer. The main corrupt
Flint?
Yes. Have that be like the mid-season or the season 1 finale. Because like that's such a good moment, and that's kind of the turning point of Gordon's time with the GCPD. Is he's this kind of quiet character trying to do everything by the book, and then he just goes, fuck it, I'm going to punch you in the face, and you're going to fucking listen to me.
I am more optimistic about this now, based on these little bits here and there. I mean, in a lot of ways, you know, year 1 is a two-hander between Bruce and Gordon, but from one perspective, it's almost kind of more Gordon's story.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and that's hard to do if you're making a Batman movie, but there's definitely potential to do it as, you know, a show here. And I like the idea of them seeing like the aftermath of Batman around there, like the idea that he doesn't necessarily show up on the scene and have, like, you know, a big reveal like he did in, say, Batman Begins, for example, you know, taking out Falcone and putting him on the signal.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that he just sort of like, we just start hearing little bits and pieces about him, like someone going around beating these guys up, little references here and there. You know, the murmurs running through the underworlds and into the police department too. That's interesting. And I think if done cleverly, you could actually justify the absence of Batman and make it part of what makes the show interesting rather than what holds it back.
Right.
And especially if it's Jeffrey Wright, if he is in fact going to be the star of it, I'm obviously,
oh my God, that'd be
I love him.
Amazing.
He's one of my favorite actors. He's so good in Westworld.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, just hang the whole thing on him, and I'm 100% there for it. No, since that could be kind of interesting. And then I know you want to talk a little bit about Titans as the
just
one
because
of us
I want
still...
you to talk about Titans. I don't want to talk about Titans. I want you to talk about Titans.
I mean, I have no interest in this whatsoever.
Exactly.
You actually watched Titans season 2, right?
I did, unfortunately.
Okay.
And honestly, I'll probably watch season 3 as I just like continue to pluck my eyes out.
My surprise was even just they had Titans news. I honestly expected that show to just die a slow, sad, whimpering death. But no, like, hey, we're still here and we have things that we think you'll care about.
Yeah, I mean, it will fit on HBO Max. We did not get any news on DC Universe.
No, well, I mean, that's...
and
speaking of whimpering death.
Slow decay.
Yeah.
But no, Titan season 3. I honestly, I want to talk about it just because like a great quote that the director put out. So basically, season 3 is going to take place in Gotham. They're going to introduce Barbara, which is going to be pretty cool, and it sounds like Scarecrow is going to be the overarching villain. But at the end of season 2, Jason leaves the group, and he starts kind of being his own vigilante. And the director brought out this awesome African proverb, which is a child that is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And I'm like, that's such an awesome analogy for Jason Todd.
Yeah.
And then he said that child will come back in the form of Red Hood. It's a little on the nose of what it's going to be.
But, I mean, look, there is a potentially interesting story to tell there. Like, I think one of the coolest things about Jason Todd now is that he went from a character being most famous for getting voted to die.
Yeah,
like,
murdered.
People wanting... Yeah, murdered by the fans. Literally murdered by the fans. To his most interesting thing is actually almost now, not even that he died and came back, but that he has this really jaded, cynical, it's from some perspective, almost slightly more pragmatic approach to vigilantism than Batman does. And you can almost have that character exist now without having to do his death and return arc.
Yeah.
And there could be something interesting there, but especially if they like prime him as one of the main villains of season 3. But that being said, this show, maybe more so than anything else, is really good at taking like, well, this could be something interesting,
and then just fucking throwing it on the ground.
Yes, doing nothing with it. You know, like even the beginning of Titan season 1, we were talking about like, oh, there's some cool potential here. And they squandered all of it. So look, yeah, they could do a really cool story about Jason being the Red Hood and both being a vigilante and an antagonistic force to Dick and the rest of the Titans. But we're assuming they'll do a good job. And evidence at this point says they won't.
I have a question for you, Chris, because I just thought about this when we talk about the brutal murder of Jason Todd.
Yes.
Did Joker have to like have a sit-down chat with Sportsmaster, being like, hey, you know, like, killing people with sporting equipment is kind of my thing, and I don't appreciate you not coming to me before you decide to use a golf club to beat it. No, sorry, he used a crowbar. Damn it.
I was gonna
I don't know why I had in my head that it was a golf club.
I wasn't sure where you're going with that. I was like, Cameron, can you please explain to me what sport uses a crowbar?
Golf, obviously. Damn it, I totally had it in my head that he used a golf club. It was a crowbar.
I mean, I suppose you could use a crowbar as a semi-decent putter.
Yeah.
But...
Okay, part 2 of the question. Has anyone ever cosplayed as the mechanic that sold Joker the crowbar?
I mean, I welcome you to try and make that work.
I will.
Yeah.
It'll be a thing.
If anyone can find a way to visualize that very specific story, I believe you can.
Because, of course, that's the one thing Joker's going to buy. He's not going to steal a crowbar. That would just be rude.
No, of course not. He actually has a really lovely relationship with that mechanic.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, the mechanic, he just can't understand why everyone hates the Joker so much. He's just a super nice guy that occasionally stops by to pick up equipment.
Yeah, crowbars, springs for his jack-in-the-boxes.
He's a lovely, loyal customer.
Yeah.
I don't get the big deal.
Always pays in cash, right up front.
Yeah, nice guy. Mm-hmm. Always smiling.
Always smiling. Yeah. I can't. I've never had any client come in and ask for green paint on a car, but this guy, like, he's really like helped me get rid of all this back inventory.
So well dressed.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last thing, we're talking TV, and this might be slightly controversial, but I'm counting the Snyder Cut as TV at this point, because it was announced that the movie will be 4 hours, which at that point makes it like a fucking miniseries, because they're also going to break it up into 4 1-hour parts, which, to be fair, I think is the right way to go on this.
I agree. You got to milk it, man. You got to milk it forever. This is never going to end.
They're going to drag it out over a month. You know they are. It's going to come out week to week. What will be interesting to see is where they find dividing points in it. Like, you kind of have to some degree right around.
Well, it's going to be like a typical story's 4 arcs. You know how every story has a 4th arc in it.
Yeah, the classic 4-arc story. But you kind of feel like they have to have some sense of soft ending to each part if it's going to be episodic.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just going to like end and then tune in next week. I don't know. It's going to be weird. But along with the announcement of how we're going to be seeing it, we did get our first official trailer. What were your thoughts on the trailer, Cameron?
I'm ashamed of myself for falling for it again. Because honestly, the trailer got me a little hyped.
Do you not learn?
No, I don't. Snyder is so good at trailers. And I know, after watching it, I closed the tab and I'm like, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. But then I watched it again this morning. I'm like, fuck, I'm excited for this show again. I'm excited for this movie show. Except for the look of anyone connected to Darkseid. Darkseid looks bad.
Right, of course.
His minions look like bad photocopies of Thanos' children.
Yes. And I do agree with you that normally Zack Snyder is really good with trailers. I didn't think this trailer was great. I mean, piece by piece, the footage they showed was certainly interesting, and it has this visual flair. There's no doubt about that. And the reality is the movie we got before was such a mess that pretty much anything by comparison can be an improvement. I was just so distracted by his music choice on this.
It was a weird music choice. I after like the first minute I got into it, but it's a weird start.
So to me, tonally, it didn't match with what we were seeing on screen, which was, dramatic, but also like action packed. And normally he's really good about finding those songs that just kind of have a gravitas to them. And to me, this felt a little bit odd. Like, it didn't match. It also felt really on the nose of like, oh my God, hallelujah, we're finally getting the Snyder Cut.
That's exactly what it was supposed to be. It is for the fans to get on their hands and knees and pray to their God, Zack Snyder. And he says, my Lord, we did it. We have prayed and you have come to us.
This whole thing has always been like a deeply masturbatory exercise, but I've always given Snyder credit for not leaning into that a lot.
The Messiah role.
Well, he's always kind of played this so far as being just grateful that people were appreciative of his existence. I mean, it didn't help that he was just constantly throwing out bait for the whole thing, but I've never felt that he has been self-congratulatory or self-aggrandizing in any sort of way, and that music choice to me felt that in a nutshell. Just like, aren't you guys so excited? I'm finally giving you the thing you've always wanted, the only thing you've ever wanted, the greatest gift possible to the world is my 4-hour Justice League.
Come, my children. I have spoils from around the world for you. It is I am the spoils. Eat my bread and drink my blood.
It just felt really on the nose, and also weird because he must just really love that song, and because he's constantly trying to put it in scenes that don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you remember that was the worst part of his Watchmen movie, was the Hallelujah sex scene up inside
Oh yeah,
Archie.
yep.
He loves that song and could not find a tonally consistent spot to put it in. So I thought it was really weird that he chose to do it again. I mean, so that weird nitpick aside, obviously I'm looking forward to this. I'm not going to go so far as say I'm excited about it, but it is something I'm looking forward to seeing and experiencing. And I agree that Darkseid looks generic gray mass, as does Steppenwolf, but Steppenwolf does look a lot better.
He does.
And a lot more menacing than we got in the theatrical cut. And hey, we're getting Black Suit Superman.
I didn't see a mullet though. Come on, Snyder.
We can't have everything.
No, because we're next year, 2022, 2021, we're gonna release the mullet cut, and we're gonna get this all over again. It's gonna be the same movie with someone digitally adding a mullet on top of Superman.
Okay, here's a question for you, Cameron. You get one of two options. You can either see the Snyder cut, or you can see the theatrical version, but it's the mustache cut, and they haven't CGI'd over it.
Oh,
which, keep in mind, that means you have to rewatch the theatrical cut of Justice League.
I'll be honest with you, Chris. I have no memory of the Justice League movie anymore. I like the Justice League movie and BVS. Someone was trying to talk to me about BVS this week, and they're bringing up all these moments, and I'm like, I don't remember anything. I've fully blacked out BVS, minus the shot of Wonder Woman landing between the two and the Martha screaming. I've fully blacked out the entirety of every DC movie
because they're so fucking forgettable.
I will say there are two shots of to answer your question, I'd pick the mustache cut for sure.
Okay, thank you.
There are two shots in this that really stood out to me. One for fun, one because it was like a beautiful shot, and one because like he had to do it. There's that. It's so short, but I'm just like, wow, that's gorgeous. It's when Aquaman is walking with arms wide, walking backwards through the wall of water, and I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, that looks so good. And then it's the shot of Superman coming back in the cornfield, and it's Clark and Amy Adams and Martha. And at first, it's the three of them, and you don't see Clark's face. But then there's the very specific shot that holds for like a beat too long, where it's like it feels like it's in focus on his chin, just because of like, hey, look, there's no mustache problems here. And I'm like, you don't need that shot, because the first shot had the right emotion. The second shot is just for fans. So like, look, there's no CGI on his face. Isn't that great?
What I would love to see Snyder start doing is releasing the music video cuts of all of his movies. Yeah. So you take the movies exactly as they are, and you just completely eliminate any sort of audio or sound effects, and you just put his very specific playlist over the top of all of it.
I wonder if anyone's tried to hire him for a music video, because that would be so good.
I think that's where he got his start, was doing music videos.
That would make a lot of sense. Hold on, Zach.
I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure. And if not, what a waste. Because, you can definitely say that pretty much in any one of his movies, you can pinpoint a moment that he does really good video audio pairings. Like even Justice League, the boring abomination that it is, the opening montage, all set to Everybody Knows, like mourning the lost Superman, that is a really, really good sequence. And that feels very Snyder. I don't think that was Whedon, although we'll see soon.
So Zack Snyder did in the early 90s. Yeah, he did get a start with music videos. He directed a ZZ Top music video back in 94. Directed a Rod Stewart music video in 95.
These don't feel like normal Zack Snyder choices. Like I was thinking, like maybe like a My Chemical Romance, or like a Red Hot Chili Peppers.
You nailed it right on the head. 2009, he did a My Chemical Romance music video.
Okay, clearly that's where his stride. I cannot see a Rod Stewart music video working with the Zack Snyder visual touch. But now should we talk about actual movies?
Sure. Let's talk about real movies.
All right. So you want to talk a little bit about Superman Man of Tomorrow, which I think just got its digital launch?
It did. As of recording this, the digital version of Man of Tomorrow is available on, I assume, still DC Universe? Maybe?
No, usually it ends up going up on like purchase places first. So it's gonna be up on like an Amazon,
Okay.
iTunes, and stuff like that. And then a few months down the line, they'll put it up on DC Universe. But who knows? It might be dead by the time it's ready to go.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. So this wasn't specifically part of DC Fandome, but they released an exclusive clip like the day before. So I think Friday they dropped this, and it's really short. It's like this 1.5-minute clip, and it's of teenage Superman first interacting with Martian Manhunter. And the only reason I want to talk about it is seeing teenage Superman, and not Superboy, but teenage Superman, not pouty Superboy, makes me desperately want a Smallville animated series in some form. Because like that brought a light inside me that I didn't know could turn on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, just give me this. Just give me like an hour-long Smallville animated short. Because it was so like pure. That's all I wanted to say.
You do know that they did continuation comics, right? Once he's finally Superman, like Smallville season 11.
I'll repeat myself, Chris. I want an animated series of Smallville where he is a teenager.
How foolish of me to suggest reading something in contrast to you offering up watching a cartoon.
Yes, and he's too old at that point. He's not a teenager anymore when he's on the suit. I wanted him pre-suit. We had 10 seasons of pre-suit.
And it still wasn't enough for you.
Yeah. Ideally No, Flash was Blur. What was Streak?
No, Superman was Blur.
Okay.
He was Blur.
Okay, yeah. Pre-Blur days.
Look, I am not opposed to an animated Smallville movie, especially because you could get pretty much everyone back. Like, Tom Welling would come back. Michael Rosenbaum would come back.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, he loves his voice acting now.
Yeah, and honestly, just for those two alone. Oh, we could get Erica Durance back as Lois.
Yeah.
I would insist that it be set after Lois appeared because I still think that she is the best part of that show.
I mean, she can just go to their high school. Why not?
I mean, she did.
Did she?
She did go to their high school. Yeah. Like, they introduced her, I want to say, like, end of season 3 or beginning of season 4. And at that point, they're just like, oh, she goes here now. Like, she's always in town.
Okay. I guess I just don't remember her being in school with them.
Who knows? Maybe she wasn't actually in school. I don't know. But she was there. She was already there at that point anyways. Mm-hmm. So, and also, hang on. Erica Durance is the second best thing in Smallville behind Tom Welling's abs.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a Lana stan.
I know you are. Someone has to be. Okay, so in terms of like the big movies, though, lots of announcements.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with The Flash? Because there's some kind of interesting stuff there.
Okay.
First off is the announcement that came out just before Fandome, which was that Batfleck is back.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Batfleck is continuing his stride as the most questionable Batman.
Look, I'm not opposed to giving him a chance to shine, actually, because I still maintain that though BVS is a disaster on so many levels, he is good in that, even if that character is not particularly well written. But I think he inhabits the role well, despite what he's given. And I think that by the time I came around to doing the Justice League reshoots, I think he was just so tired and so didn't give a fuck that he wasn't even phoning it in. Now, it'll be interesting to see like what his performance is like coming out of the Snyder Cut and see if maybe when that part was filmed, if he was a little more invested in it. Because I also think that stuff was done, I think, prior to the terrible reception that BVS got. So maybe he still has a little bit of, gas left in the tank.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised by this because I kind of assumed that the reason they were including Keaton was that they were trying to still have an older Batman figure in here and they didn't have access to Batfleck. But clearly that's not the case. So clearly the movie is going to start out in the former DCEU continuity that I guess still is sort of technically ongoing. And then the Flash is going to go back in time, and then maybe when he returns, it'll be Keaton's Batman. But I wasn't expecting this, but I'm not necessarily opposed to it in a weird way.
Yeah, I hope someone counted the number of times they said Flashpoint in this panel, because even just reading the reviews, it was in every sentence, and every quote they pulled had like just like in Flashpoint and blah 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 blah, like in Flashpoint, And I'm like, just call the movie Flashpoint at this point. Like, you're not even like hiding it anymore. That you're just telling the exact story from the comics.
Yeah. Well, and one of the interesting things about that is with them acknowledging its inspiration from Flashpoint, at this point, DC's essentially decided to just fully embrace the idea of a multiverse. Like they even went so far as to say that the Ezra Miller Flash's appearance in the Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover is considered canon. So now they've just accepted like a multiverse exists, which I think basically what they're saying is that all DC universes that have existed up to this point do exist. And I guess the one thing is in the present that allows them to justify the fact that you have Ben Affleck at the same time that you have Robert Pattinson doing Batman. They can just have all these different things going simultaneously. I can see it allowing them a little bit of creative freedom. And the one cool thing is it gives them a chance to acknowledge and revisit some of the stuff that existed in the past. Like it's honestly pretty cool that we're getting a return of Keaton's Batman. I don't expect us to see Clooney's Batman ever again, but I'm not entirely opposed to it, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, it's like the multiverse now exists,
and I think that works because I think it might have even been just the Weekly Planet talking about this, and we've brought it up many times. They've really exhausted all of the canon comics they pull from. We've kind of hit all of the big ones, and opening it up to a multiverse allows you to do the weirder side stories. We can get a Red Sun movie. For Superman specifically, we can get kind of the crazier stories in there.
Yeah. It would be nice if they could just give us a good Superman movie first.
Right. But you're asking a lot, Chris.
I'm asking way too much. I've just asked them to take a character that actually is great and just make a good movie out of him. How dare I?
So here's the quote from the panel that kind of goes over the whole thing. It says, "This film is immensely important, Flash, because if you look around the DC universe, obviously all these characters that exist are within their own bubbles. We even now have multiple iterations of the same story. This movie, by opening that door that Flashpoint did in the comics, all these stories and characters will start to collide. It blows our minds, the level of possibilities that exist within the context of the character of this story." And he said, "The cinematic universe is going to be born out of this movie," Holden said. "It is born out of Barry's story." Flashpoint.
Great. We haven't even talked about the fact that I have no interest in Ezra Miller as the Flash.
Yeah. So. I read an article because I missed this panel when it was live. And they my favorite sentence about it, they said, Ezra Miller doing his best skinny Jack Black impersonation was a bundle of energy in the panel.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong. Except I like Jack Black way more than Ezra Miller.
Yeah, the same. So I don't know. Well, look, we'll see. They put out a couple of pieces of concept art, one showing the Flash mostly in shade in like a much more streamlined, kind of maybe comic accurate suit. Another one of him teaming up with Keaton's Batman. Look, if this movie ever gets made, it'll be interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
So, so we had that. We also had a couple small announcements about Shazam 2.
Yes.
Yeah, so we now know it's going to be called Shazam, Fury of the Gods. And in the teaser poster, it also included the actor Sinbad, which raises so many questions.
Nope, no questions.
So what the main question, I guess it raises one question. Is he in this movie? Or is this just an acknowledgement by David Sandberg, who famously is quite a goofy, fun guy, the director, just acknowledging that there's the Mandela effect of everyone assuming there was a movie called Shazam starring Sinbad in the 90s.
Right, yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, they honestly should have just remade that poster with the group.
Yeah. Look, at the same time, I would kind of love it if they found a way to put Sinbad in that movie.
Yes.
I think it'd be highly entertaining.
I mean, what they should do is that's what like the family is watching at the beginning or end. Like that's the button of the movie is them watching Sinbad, and like you can even end it as like or it's them watching Shazam. It's like, isn't his name Kazam? And then like cut the credits.
I'd watch it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm down for that little button.
Yeah. And we also got a teaser for Black Adam.
Oh, we got a lot of news on Black Adam. Yeah.
Lots of news on Black Adam. Yeah. So they haven't filmed it yet. So they just did, they basically did 2 kind of teaser spots showing like, basically concept art with voiceover from, mind you, The Rock, not from Black Adam, but like it's basically just The Rock talking about the movie.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's a little bit unclear.
Honestly, it's a little off-putting hearing him talk like as a serious person. And so I'm very fascinated by his role as a villain.
Yeah, because they basically kind of they do a teaser explaining like the history of like, you know, it was this ancient civilization, and Black Adam is a slave as pretty much else, and he's granted the powers that make him into Black Adam, and then he kind of fights against his oppressors, and then I guess the rest of the movie is gonna be set 5,000 years later, presumably in relatively modern times. And then a second teaser also introduced that he's gonna be going up against the JSA, and he specifically references Hawkman, Doctor Fate, Cyclone, and then Atom Smasher, who we now know will be played by Noah Centineo. Interesting choices there. I mean, Hawkman, Doctor Fate makes sense. Those are 2 of the big characters in the JSA. But I don't even know really who Cyclone is. Then Atom Smasher also felt like kind of an interesting choice.
Well, I mean, let's look at the JSA and what they can't use Flash, and they could, but they shouldn't. Green Lantern is a question mark across the entirety of the DC universe.
But they also basically announced, as the part of the discussion about the multiverse, is that they've essentially, as they put it, gotten rid of the rules that limit where characters can go. Like, there's no longer going to be embargoes. Like, famously, there was a Bat embargo after Batman Begins that prevented certain characters from showing up in the Batman animated series, but also prevented Bruce Wayne from ever showing up on Smallville.
Right.
A similar embargo was put in place around Harley Quinn and the Suicide Squad, which was why Deadshot was killed off in the Arrowverse pretty quickly, and Task Force X was eliminated. So DC's basically said, like, that doesn't apply anymore. Like, if it creatively it makes sense to put a character in somewhere, we will. You know, so they could have the Flash possibly in this, especially if it's Jay Garrick, you know, the original Flash. There's room for that. Or if they could put in Alan Scott, the non-Green Lantern Green Lantern.
I know, and that's everything be made of wood, and he'd be very scared.
But you know, there's a lot of great characters in JSA. Like, I always thought that Hourman was super interesting. Dr. Midnight's in there,
and they're already teaching the audience through Stargirl. Like, Stargirl is a JSA series.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting they chose those. We only know who's playing one of the characters, but I mean, this could be an interesting idea if it's, you know, Black Adam is sort of given all his power, and maybe it corrupts him a little bit, and then he sees himself as kind of a hero, and he's put up against a team of heroes that have a very different ethical code. Like, that could be something interesting if actually watching like a movie where there are no like quote unquote villains, although I'm sure they'll shoehorn in someone, so they have to team up in the end probably.
Because, I mean, if you look at it from his perspective, he is Moses. This is the Moses story.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, like, that is really interesting. If they go with that of, like, you know, Moses from Ramsey's perspective.
You know what? I would watch a superhero remake of The Prince of Egypt starring The Rock.
Yeah.
I think that's basically what we're getting at this point. I'm here for it. I don't know. I mean, like, I've always been a little bit down on this idea. I've always kind of maintained that Black Adam, I think, would work better as just a straight up Shazam villain rather than his own movie. But, you know, the suit looked cool.
I don't like the cape. I want the cape gone, or make it a small cape.
Was it a full cape?
It was a full cape. Didn't like it. Hated it.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it'll get cut in half and then have a nice little teeny small cape.
That's what I want.
Yeah. But, you know, at the end of the day, look, the Rock has charisma to spare. And, you know, you can probably hang a whole movie on just that alone. So,
and they have many movies.
So many times they've done that.
Most of the Fast movies, Central Intelligence, probably Jungle Cruise, but it'll be bounced out by Emily Blunt's wonderful charisma.
Who's amazing in her own right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we got some Black Adam stuff. We got a new trailer for Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes, I think they showed too much. I'm sad that we saw full cheetah. I didn't want to see full cheetah yet.
You just wanted to continue to see Kristen Wiig in a bunch of like leopard print jackets instead?
That's it.
I kind of agree with you. In general, the less they reveal, the better. I also kind of get why they did, because I think one of the things that we're now facing is this weird situation where like tie-in merchandise and promo stuff is now becoming available when the movie's not.
Yeah, the Lego set is already out. You can already get the Lego cheetah fight.
Exactly. Yeah. And famously, that's always been an issue, is that toys oftentimes end up revealing things and spoiling things. Like you could go all the way back to Mask of the Phantasm, where the Phantasm toy was packaged with the hood off and you could see it was Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've had a history of that. Lego's done a lot of that too. The interesting thing now is that actually with Lego, a lot of their sets, as with most toys, is based off of kind of like the script when they go into shooting and initial concept designs, and things change.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, when Batman and Robin came out, the Batgirl toy had a full cowl because that's the way the design looked at the time. Ultimately, they changed it. And you see little bits of that. You can even look at some Lego sets, like the Ant-Man Lego set that came out with the first movie also had Hank Pym in an Ant-Man suit. And you're like, oh, is this a spoiler for the movie? Never ended up happening. So sometimes things seem like they're spoiled, they're not. But also at this point, yeah, like, we know the figure exists. We've seen the little Lego figure of her in full cheetah. So I guess they're like, well, it's already known. Maybe they just kind of assumed they were better off including a shot of her to get people pleased that we get full cheetah rather than leaving it as a reveal. But I do understand where you're coming from on that.
I mean, my other thought of that, because I didn't know about the Lego stuff. That's actually really interesting. I didn't know they based off the initial script.
Yeah.
My other thought is it's going to be another misdirect, just like the first Wonder Woman was, where Cheetah's going to be the Act 2 villain, and that's where we're seeing her already, and the Act 3 villain is going to be What's-His-Face, who's granting all these wishes.
Oh, Maxwell Lord?
Yeah. I kept thinking, my brain kept going to Maximilian Zeus, and I know that wasn't it. Maxwell Lord.
No. It's my fictional second cousin, Maxwell Lord.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the movie finally gives us like some sense of plot, which is like Maxwell Lord somehow has ability to seemingly grant wishes, so that turns Barbara Minerva into Cheetah, and presumably is how Steve Trevor returns. And I have to say, for me, the highlight of the trailer was just any time Chris Pine was talking.
Yeah.
Especially in this trailer, like every time he's on screen, he's just so charming, and just like I think people don't appreciate how good Chris Pine is from a comedic perspective.
Yeah. Did you ever watch Love Is War or This Is War with him and Tom Hardy?
I actually really liked that movie.
I love that movie. I'm glad you like it too. I think that is one of the funniest rom-coms of the past, like, 10 or whenever it came out, 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect film, but it's Chris Pine and Tom Hardy as best friend spies who both fall for Reese Witherspoon. It's like that movie just has charisma to spare.
Yes, it's so much fun. I wonder if it's streaming, because I want to watch that today.
Look out for the bonus episode, Timm Talk, where we discuss This Means War. But yeah, I'm excited for Wonder Woman. I think it's going to be good. I'm hopeful based off that trailer.
Yeah.
So.
And Surfing on Lightning, still fucking awesome.
Oh, it's still amazing. Still so goddamn cool.
Yeah.
And the golden armor looks incredible.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Cheetah looks fine.
Looks fine.
Again, I think that shot might be like mid-transformation. But who knows?
Who knows?
They like their misdirects over there at DC. Like misdirecting us into thinking it's going to be good, and it's not.
Sometimes they also misdirect us into thinking there's going to be misdirects, and that's exactly what we expect it to be.
Right.
Keeps us on our toes.
One super last thing on Wonder Woman. I love how they ended the trailer with only in theaters. As in, like, we have to assume they're like, well, maybe it's just going to come out on digital. It's like, no, this is a theatrical film. Because they did that with a couple of their trailers. I think even the Batman said, like, only in theaters. The Batman.
Only in theaters, yeah. They're going to make us see it in theaters, even if it literally kills us.
Yes.
So, but yeah, so saving kind of the big two for last here. So, The Suicide Squad. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
Wow.
This looks nuts in the best way possible.
Yes. Just the roll call alone was so I spent probably like 30 to 40 minutes just Googling every person they mentioned because I didn't know anybody. So
I wrote them down. I don't know if you did.
Yes, I did as well.
Okay, all right. So we can run through them here. So Idris Elba is playing Bloodsport. Now, did you look him up? I don't know anything about Bloodsport.
I did. Bloodsport is a mercenary, a Superman villain mercenary who's famous for kind of hitting. He was the first one to shoot Superman with a kryptonite bullet.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So he's kind of the Superman version of Deadshot. Oh, he also has an appearance in JLE. Sorry, he has a. We see Bloodsport in that tournament episode of JLU.
Oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So, we also get the return of Rick Flag, Amanda Waller, and Captain Boomerang, and Harley Quinn, the only returning members so far from the original movie, all of whom are great.
Yeah, Harley's outfit looks great. Love the leather.
Yeah, I think that's her best look yet in the movies. She looks awesome. I'm just so glad Captain Boomerang's back. Yep. I loved him in the first movie. So we get all of them returning. We get Sean Gunn as Weasel.
He looks so gross. I hate it. I already hate it so much.
From that character alone, this movie does kind of feel like the anti-Marvel film in some ways.
Yes.
Like, because you love the idea of like James Gunn, he was on board this before he was re-announced as returning to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's unclear as to whether he was actually totally fired, if it was all just kind of a delayed campaign. But his inclusion, but also having Sean Gunn, who plays the on-screen version of Rocket, play the on-screen version of a character that looks like a demented Rocket. It's genius.
I mean, he looks like a live-action Weasel from Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, he really does. No, he looks fantastic.
It's so gross.
So here, so on board for that. We got Pete Davidson as Blackguard, who I know nothing about.
Blackguard, funny enough, is a Booster Gold villain.
Love it.
Yeah. He's known for having this kind of futuristic tech suit, which it doesn't look like he has, and this very bizarre long purple ponytail, which he also does not have.
Oh, what a shame. What a goddamn shame. So then we also have Melchior Daniela as Ratcatcher 2.
Yes, and you corrected me before the podcast. I thought she was Sewer Queen.
No, yeah. So Ratcatcher is a totally different character who does have the ability to, like, I think, control rats. But it's also weird because also there's the character of the Pied Piper, who I think has the same ability.
I mean, it sounds like she's just the DC version of Squirrel Girl.
I think she's a little bit darker and weirder than that.
Yeah. But they had a quick... I jumped in for one of the quick interviews with James Gunn, and he said if he could be anyone in Suicide Squad, he would choose Ratcatcher because she's the only one who knows who she is.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it sounds like she's going to kind of be there for less character development and more kind of comic relief, which is weird because every one of these characters looks just like a comic relief character.
Oh.
I can't tell who the main cast is.
No, it's impossible to know who this movie really hangs on because we also have Nathan Fillion as TDK. Don't know who that is.
Who is an original character.
Oh, really?
Yes, this is a James Gunn original character.
I mean,
that's why we don't know anything about him.
I love that he wrote a character just for Nathan Fillion in this. That
yes, I mean, of course.
We have Steve Agee as King Shark. Great casting choice.
Yep, we know all about him.
Just his voice alone is going to be so perfect coming out of that mouth. We have David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man.
Yes, another one we knew about beforehand. One we've been very excited for a while.
Yes. We have... I apologize, I'm probably going to butcher this name. We have...
Mei Ling Ning.
Yeah. Mei Ling Ning, thank you, as Mongal. So same planet as the character Mongol. We have Alice Braga as Sol Soria.
So this is one that I tried to find, and this character doesn't exist in DC. But there's a male version named Sal Soria.
Oh, okay.
Who's a mercenary who lost his hands and had them replaced with nanites. And so he can kind of hack into things with the nanites.
Brilliant.
So,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, very weird, very DC. But yeah, this character's also a question mark.
Love it. John Cena as Peacemaker.
And he seemed to be the focus of the panel. And so I feel like this is going to be one of the main characters. But he's been described as douchey Captain America. And even in the teaser, we got John Cena described him as a character who will do anything for the sake of peace, even if it is murder.
Yep. Which sounds brilliant. Love this John Cena too. He's always so fantastic. Yeah. So we have Juan Diego Bota as Luna. We have Peter Capaldi as the Thinker, or as just Thinker, who I don't know what the character is, but he's got a great look. So
he does. So Thinker was the main villain in the Flash CW series of season 4.
Oh, okay.
So he's just a genius with telekinetic powers.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Of course, we have Michael Rooker playing Savant.
Yes. Also a weird character design. The wig, so good. So excited for that wig. Savant is he was an aspiring vigilante of Gotham. He's a rich boy who just kind of wanted to use his money for good, and so he became a vigilante until Batman said, "You're a bad vigilante," and then he became a hacker and an extortionist.
Love it.
Yep.
Perfect for Mike Rooker. And then, of course, I'm saving the best for last. We have the great Flula Borg as Javelin.
Flula. Yes. Javelin is a Green Lantern villain. So they really like plucked it from all around, which is awesome.
I mean, that's what they should be, right? It should be like the chance to pull the weirdest villains that otherwise wouldn't really work in a major movie as a primary antagonist or even a secondary antagonist, and just throw them in here, even if they're on screen for like 5 minutes. It adds fun and depth.
Yeah, my thought when they were doing this announcement was for you, and I'm just thinking like, wow, we're gonna get so many Legos out of this.
God, I hope so. God, I just want all of them. All I really want in life is a Flula Borg Lego set.
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Oh my God, yeah.
Give this to me. I mean, look, I'm excited about this. It looks weird. It looks fun. I mean, in James Gunn, we trust, I'd say at this point.
Yeah, the producer was on. He described it as a gritty's 1970 war movie combined with James Gunn's characters and comedy. I'm like, that all sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm absolutely here for it. It just looks
all
insane.
The costumes look great. They're like really leaning into color, which is awesome.
Yeah, like there's none of this like weird muted color palette. Like it's all bright and bizarre, and like the costumes look bad in a clearly intentional way.
Yeah.
Except for Harley.
Except Harley, because Harley's looks so good.
That costume is spot on. It's like, I mentioned last week, I just finished reading the Jimmy and Amanda run on her comics, and that costume she's wearing this is pulled straight from like her New 52 look, and it looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
God, cannot wait for this. All right, anything else? Should we get on to the big one here?
Have we made it to the end?
We've made it to the end. We've saved the best for last. So we did get biggest.
Yeah,
we got the biggest, save for last. We finally got our first look in a full trailer at Matt Reeves' The Batman.
Yes.
What did you think about this?
I am intrigued, but not on board yet.
I would share that sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my biggest complaint about this is we didn't get a real Bruce scene. And I really, because I mean, the whole reason we were kind of excited with Our Bat's Bat and Bat is because we thought he would be a good Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. And
we didn't get a single scene of him as Bruce.
Yeah, we just got like one shot of him with very emo hair. Yeah, I'm very interested after seeing this. Like I watched this and I want to see more. I want to know more about it. I think some of my initial concerns are abated. Like I actually think the suit looked great when we saw it on screen.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm still not super sold on their version of the Batmobile, but hey, let's wait to see how it is in action. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Jeffrey Wright looks amazing as Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, I care about him. I care about Catwoman, honestly, more than I care about Bruce right now.
Yeah, so
because she looked pretty great.
Yeah, so she's still just like Selena Kyle Cat Burglar. She's not full on Catwoman, and you definitely get the impression that the whole movie is kind of doing proto versions of the villains. Like Catwoman is not in; she's in a burglar suit, but not in like a full cat suit. I'm pretty sure that the Riddler is going to be the primary antagonist here.
That's definitely who they're setting up right now.
Yeah, and he's like he's murdering people and leaving clues behind. And that part looks kind of interesting. And like it looks very proto. Like his face is covered and he's got kind of the glasses, which some versions of the Riddler has, kind of over the mask, but he doesn't necessarily look like the Riddler as we know him. And then it's kind of blink or you miss it, but we do get a very, very quick shot of an unrecognizable Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I only realized in my second viewing that's who that was.
Yeah, I honestly completely forgot that it was Colin Farrell.
Yeah, it looks nothing like him.
Because there's been so many actors confirmed for this movie, so many characters confirmed. I'm surprised we didn't get just like teaser shots of anyone.
No, not really. Like, didn't see any of Andy Serkis as Alfred. Look, the tone looks very interesting. It's really really gritty and dirty, and like greasy almost. But look, it's an interesting world we're playing in on this one. I'd say. It all feels very proto Batman, which I guess it makes sense they'd have to go a really different route because we already got proto Batman once in the form of Batman Begins, and like that movie ends, and you kind of see like, oh, this is where he becomes like the Batman we know and love, and it, from me at least, went in a different direction than I'd hoped with the Dark Knight. But here they clearly had to do something to make it feel distinct, which I'll give them credit for.
It's proto Batman.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Like I agree with you. I keep saying the best. It was definitely the biggest announcement, say for last. Like seeing all over just the internet in general, Reddit especially, everyone's going like nuts over this. I'm just kind of like okay, all right. I'm open to more, but it's not like I'm going like, oh my god, this is the definitive version of Batman right off in the beginning.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that the way this movie seems to be shaping up is the exact movie I pitched on Ideal Remake when I did that episode with Sam. I pitched a version of Batman early on in his career where he's just starting to learn how to be a detective. I had Ethan Bennett as the main cop rather than Jim Gordon, which is what they're doing here. But I had it that he is going up against the Riddler, who is murdering a whole bunch of people and is making a very public presence. But also in the background is Oswald Cobblepot, who actually runs the gangs and possibly presents a greater threat to Gotham than the Riddler, but the Riddler has more appeal because there's a mystery behind it and the prestige behind it, and Batman's trying to make his name. So maybe I'm just seeing that in this trailer because that's the version of the movie that exists in my head. But if that's what we end up getting, I'm saying it here now that I already pitched it once because I also, way back in the day, pitched more or less Man of Steel, but it was Brainiac instead of Zod.
Zod.
Yeah. So, I'm going to make a career out of not having a career making movies that someone else makes.
Hell yeah.
But look, I mean, all this being said, this is pretty cool. They did this thing. I think you and I are both a little bit skeptical about DC Fandome in general going in. And I'd say for me, it exceeded my expectations in terms of what they revealed and how they handled it.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, especially after Comic-Con, like I had a pretty sour taste in my mouth with how kind of disappointing that was. And this really showed how Comic-Con needs the big players to survive.
It really does. And without them, it'd be interesting to see what happens. So, all right. So kind of wrapping the whole thing up here, Cameron, what is the thing you are most excited about coming out of this? And what is the thing you couldn't give a crap about?
I mean, Titans should be the thing that I don't give a shit about, but honestly, like the Shazam 2 I'm excited for Shazam 2 and Fury of the Gods. Okay. But I think the announcement of that, I didn't give a fuck about. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Thing I'm most excited for, probably Suicide Squad movie.
Okay.
Like that just looked so otherworldly at this point. With Snyder Cut being a close second.
Okay. No, that's fair.
Yeah. What about you?
I actually think I'm most excited about Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, the video game. I think it's the most different thing on here compared to everything else. And obviously the thing that I couldn't give two shits about is Titans. I don't care at all what happens.
Yeah, I know.
And then
That's the only reason I brought it up.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna give an honorable mention in terms of things I'm most excited about to the Snyder Cut. Not that we're gonna see it, but that it means that once it's finally out there, it will go away.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, on a comparable note, I am now just starting to get all the ads for New Mutants.
Oh.
Because we are 5 days away again.
Yep.
From the release of New Mutants.
Yep, from a handful of people being able to see it in theaters.
Yep. I've been getting targeted everywhere for that movie, and I'm so excited.
I mean, to be fair, the reason you're getting targeted is because every week before we do an episode, you're Googling to see what the latest New Mutants news is.
I'm constantly, probably like 2 times a week, I'm Googling when New Mutants is coming out.
So, according to Fox's algorithm, like, you're the #1 New Mutants fan in the world.
Yeah, just send me a copy, Fox.
Yeah.
Like I'll give it a very, very good review.
If only. All right. Well, shall we wrap things up here?
I think we did it.
All right. Well, hey, you know what?
Let's start static news. Let's start static. All right. Finale.
Well, hey, you know what? Overall, I think good work on DC's part with the Fandome here. Interesting to see what future iterations we get out of it, and a lot of good projects. You know, I think I've been pretty cynical about the slate of content coming out of DC for a while now, and this actually gives me a little bit of hope.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's a good feeling for DC.
Yeah. Also, it means that hopefully next week we'll have little to no news. So.
Well, I mean, there was a bit of Marvel news that came out this week. Like we can talk.
Shut up! We're not talking Marvel this week. There is no Marvel this week.
I know. I'm saying we're gonna talk about it next week. But like the Spider-Woman stuff.
Yeah,
we should bring up next week.
More to get into then when we'll finally be doing the finale of Static Shock. But until then, would love to hear everyone's thoughts on the announcements from DC Fandome. What were you most excited about? What do you not give a shit about? And please let us know at Timm Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. And you can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, and if you want to see my face, you can find that at CamDexter_adventures. And if you want to see my art, you can find that at Cameron.Dexter. I switched it, and that felt really weird.
Did you?
I always start with art and then face.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. Once I finish my part, I tune out. I don't know what you say after that point. You could honestly just say anything.
Yeah.
You could just start talking about how much you love Avatar again, and I wouldn't even notice.
Oh, I do. Most of the time.
And hey, maybe
Korra's up on Netflix. Everyone go check it out.
I know. Maybe by next week I'll have seen a little bit of Korra. We could talk about it.
Yeah.
But until then, thanks everybody.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Bye.